Michael Patine here once again with part 2 of my second series on the new Paiste bronze gongs. And today we're going to look at number 2 and 4 based on the old Sound Creation Water Gong. Right here on It's Cuppa Time. The Sound Creation gongs, introduced in the late 1970s, were a set of 10 very unique and special gongs that branched out from just the standard symphonic style. One of my favorites is the number 4 water gong. This is a 24-inch gong. It has a concave reversed boss, so it goes in a bit. Much like a symphonic, it has a raised face, so this comes up a little here, and we have this, and then it goes back down a bit. Heavily hammered. It has two very distinct sounds. We get the very sort of calm water sound in the center, and the very crashing or rushing type of sound on the edge. This is one of my favorite gongs ever, and it's one that I get people asking about a lot, especially people writing to me, do you know where I can find a Sound Creation Water Gong? And they're very hard to find because the people who have them don't want to give them up. And when I do see these for sale, I see them go for quite a bit. I think the last one I saw actually for sale, they wanted $2,000 for it, which is a pretty fair price for a gong that hasn't been made in 20 years or so. So this is the number 4 Sound Creation Water Gong. That these two, the number 2 and 4 bronze gongs, are sort of roughly based upon. Unlike the ones we looked at previously, the earth gongs, which you could really see they were pretty much a direct copy of the Sound Creation earth gongs. These are more of a variation. Sort of, they took the water gong idea and really kind of played with it, expanded it into two very, very different gongs. So I'm going to play them all. We'll compare and contrast the sounds and, really see what they do. So first, the number 4. Now the big difference you'll find right away is because this is only 24 inches and these are both 28 inches, is that the pitch is much higher on this. Also because it is nickel silver. The other two are bronze, so there's a much higher pitch. But you could see the character and how the same sort of sound plays out in the newer gongs. So the center, I just always love that sound. It's very, very focused. To me, it's just this tight, focused sound. There's no overtones, there's no splashing, there's no washy sound. It's just this boom, very strong, like a bell tone. And also it's a very strong tone. I mean, I can feel it even standing over here. I can feel the vibrations from that. It's a very strong tone. And that's one of the things this gong is fantastic for and known for. It's just that super focused sound. Now when you move out here, right about in here, because it really, the whole thing, because this is down, it goes up and there's kind of a roundness and then it comes back down to the edge. Here you start to really get a lot of action, more overtones, kind of that frothy sort of Paiste sound, but even magnified. So struck lightly, we still get that deep center focus, but we're getting some nice harmonics in there. that center tone, this focus tone, it never loses that. So you can tell why so many people want to get a hold of one of these original water gongs. The sound is amazing. And what's interesting is even when it opens up, it's almost like there's a low pass filter on there, because the very, very high end is not there. It sort of reaches up and stops, and it's even that high sound is very contained, like the center sound, very contained and focused. So this is an extremely focused gong, which is a lot of beautiful sound characters to it and possibilities to it. That's why I've used it so much over the years, because it's just an exquisite gong. My hat's off to Walter Meyer and the Paiste crew at that time, who created these amazing sound creation gongs. Okay, let's look at the new ones. Based on that, but really they took that idea and sort of ran with it and went in different directions. Let's compare them first. Number 2, we have this huge, very, very shallow boss. This is about 15 inches across. Very huge. And it's fairly shallow. I mean, if you look at it here, it's not much, but heavily hammered with a very small hammer. You can see hundreds and hundreds of small hammer marks throughout it. Then we have this slightly raised edge here with radial scraping and fairly prominent hammer marks from like a medium hammer. Not as big as on an earth gong, like over there, but still fairly deep and from the back. So that's number 2. Number 4, a much smaller and deeper boss, not as rounded. I don't know, it might be hard to see in the video. This one is rounded. It's really a very rounded shape, where this is more, it goes in and it's flat. Again, heavily hammered, small hammer, hundreds and hundreds of strokes. We have a scraped ring just outside of that with sort of the same medium hammer markings that we have over here, but much more of them. And then we have the nice clear ring here with just 2 circles of hammerings going around it. And this edge, this one actually goes in a bit from here. This one, I mean, you kind of have to feel these things. This one's fairly flat, goes up a little bit before going down into the boss. With this one, the curve of the gong comes up and goes down a little more. Now I've seen some of the earlier ones that had a much more prominent curvature here, and the face was sunk down a bit more. And I'll talk about this later. I'm working on an article about these gongs and about a lot of the variations I've noticed in them. So obviously they were prototyping things, and the designs have changed on some of these bronze gongs, and there are different ones out there. So anyway, like I said, this one has a little curvature here, and the whole face is set in a bit with the cup, reverse cup boss being down further. Whereas over on the traditional water gong, it's a raised center, just like on a symphonic style, where you can see it and feel it here. This comes up a bit, and then the center goes down, and the whole thing seems to be kind of up and then focused right down into the center. Where this one comes up, goes down a little bit. It's totally straight and flat here in the face, and then it goes there. Where this one really it's completely rounded here, pretty much. This one, very flat, and then a shallow boss. I don't know, I can get it on edge here. Kind of hard to see, but you can see how flat this one is versus this one. Maybe you can get a look where it does come in a little bit. So those are two, some big differences between them. The size of the reverse boss and how the face is designed. So let's start with the number 4, because it in many ways resembles the traditional one the most. So let's strike it in the center. Now my impression versus the Sound Creation, we get that focus note. It's not as strong because there's more overtones, and I can sense the face of the gong is vibrating more. Where here, it's just that very pure note from the center. It's very much like playing a nipple gong, where you're going to get just that sort of a tone. Let me grab one here. We'll sort of compare. Here's an E3 Dream M bow gong. And you just get that very prominent center note. Very similar character there. Whereas on the number 4, I could sense much more of the gong coming into play, and it's like a total gong sound with a strong note, but it's not prominent. So right away, very different character, but it's still got that focus to it. Now if we move on into the middle ring here, with all the hammering and scraping, it starts bringing in a fairly explosive crash. We still have that dark tone from the center. The actual pitch of the gong stays with it. Much like on the number 4, where the crash still kept that center tone. that's definitely what I see as a characteristic of this design here. Let's move to the outer ring here. Much more crash there. And again, when I strike it here by the logo on the outer ring, to me it's more that blah sort of modulating crash where you get this certain thing at first, it's very solid, and then it opens up and releases. So for a gong this size, 28 inches, it's a very compact sound. It opens up, but only to a point. It's almost like it has some sort of governor on it. It's like, okay, stop. And it holds it back from, like we would be on a symphonic gong, where it's just going to go and just really open up. This one still maintains its focus. Now, I'm a very visual person, so in my head I always see the sound. And when I crash on a symphonic gong, I see the sound as going out like this and spreading. When I play this one, I see the sound as coming back in, sort of coming out and curving back into the center. Just the way my brain works, but that's, my sort of sensation of this gong. It's very focused, but it stays compact. The sound stays here as opposed to spreading out. Like if we play, here's the number 9. The sound just really seems to spread out. Or this one, it really seems to hold it in. Even in playing with the rollers and bringing it up, I still feel that sound is focused. Really, really a nice sound to it. And the larger size and the bronze giving that really that darker edge. Quite an interesting gong. Let's just try it with some smaller mallets here. I really like this gong. I could see using it for my more experimental and improvised work, either in a solo capacity or playing with other instruments. I think it has a lot of different potential with different mallets, different implements. I have yet to bow any of these gongs. That will be coming up soon in a video possibly as I do more experimental work with them. But yeah, this has got a lot of potential. It's an interesting gong, very controllable, and it looks quite spectacular too with the brilliant finish on it. So that's number 4. Okay. Number 2. What can I say about number 2? It is perhaps the strangest yet most beautiful looking gong I've ever seen. I don't know if the camera can really get this, but the center is, it's sort of a dark bronze blue, really, which is unique. There's this blue character to the center. And like I said, this is very shallow. It comes in and it's very shallow. Then we have the edge with the radial scraping and the hammerings coming up and then going back down. Dark, light, dark blue, and it's a stunning looking gong. What can I say? I really like that. I think that's, to me, the visual element is always a plus. You know, if it sounds good and it looks spectacular, it's a plus. But this is an amazing looking gong. I've been wrestling with this one. It is so different and so unique, but I love it. And in the previous video, talking about changing my gong setup, I was using the number 2 in my new setup. So let's play it. And really, I'm amazed at how many hammer marks are in this surface here. This has been heavily, heavily hammered. Let's take a look at the back. Maybe we can get a better look at things here. So there's the back, and you can kind of see we have real prominent hammering here where it's dropping this down, and it's just a very slight boss here, reverse boss, but there's just hundreds of hammerings in there from this front. And I don't know if you can see the color in there, blue, kind of purple on the edge. This one really is a spectacular looking gong for colors and for its shape. And it's a very unique gong. Right away, extremely tight, focused middle sound. Very reminiscent of the number 4 Sound Creation, but of course deeper because it's larger and the bronze, but it's even a more focused sound, probably due to the large number of hammerings. There's a very nice prominent bass note. And you can hear there's a little note, a little harmonic wanting to jump out. If I move more towards the edge of the center, still that strong center note. But activating more of the highs coming out. It's a very changing sound. We get that initial impact with the low note, and then everything kind of comes up and it wavers a bit. Gorgeous crash sound. This reminds me of some of the really old chow gongs I've played on, with just that dark where they keep that dark note in the center and then have the crash around it. And again, to me, it's very controlled. There are no real high highs in there. It's all lows and mids. And I can sense the sound again is being very contained within the gong. Let's play on the edge here. I love this gong. Yeah, it's funny, when I saw the initial video, short video, Jens Zuger did 8 years ago when these gongs were introduced at the Music Mess in Germany, the trade show. It was very noisy, and I heard those. And then last year, Jens was at the Memphis Gong Chamber and helped Jim Pettit there open up his crate of gongs, and they played them. And I listened to them, and I was like, yeah, okay. Number two didn't really strike me as much. Same thing when I was at Andy's playing the set down there. But now that I have one, I've been working with it, I love this gong. I can't say enough about it. The sound just does something to me. The potential I see for the future of, exploring and finding more sounds. It's an outstanding gong. It's crazy. Listen to that beautiful bell tone in the center. Sounds out of this gong. Just so you know what I'm using here, this one is a medium hard rubber mallet. And again, before people freak out, because it's a harder rubber. As you notice, I'm not like laying into it. Also, it's not like a 6-inch diameter rubber head. It's very small, and not playing with any real force. So I use all types of materials. If you saw my mallet video a while back, and a hard rubber the small head brings out those extreme highs. I like using that more in experimental work than in a gong session. But these are a medium yarn wound marimba mallet. I normally use them more on bells and things, but they are nice. Especially in the center, it gets a fuller sound than the hard rubber because there's a little more mass and weight there. Then these are the sadly discontinued Mike Bolter GM4 rollers. I've got a few pair of these that I've had for years and I love them. The balance and everything just fits my hand well. I use them on everything. And then the new Paiste M5 and M4 wood-handled, yay, wood-handled mallets. So I'm excited about those. So there we go. Bronze water gongs. We have the number 4 Sound Creation nickel silver, the original, and then the 2 variations on that, the number 2 and number 4 bronze gongs. Don't forget to leave a comment or a question if you have one. I'd love to keep the communication going here. And hit subscribe if you haven't already. Also, you can hit the little bell icon and it will send you a notification when we have a new video. Otherwise, I hope you got something out of this and enjoyed it. On to the next bronze gong exploration. See you next time.